All right, well, we are recording today. I've got just a really, really special guest. I've got Seth Campbell. He is the regional director in Maryland, right?
Yes,
In
Maryland,
Maryland.
DC.
He's an
Yep.
OP. He's a real estate agent extraordinaire. And I'm just extremely pleased to have him talk to me for a little bit. Seth, thanks so much for joining me.
It's my pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
It's awesome. So I wanted to start. I've been doing these videos for the last couple of weeks, and I am a productivity coach here in the La Quinta Market Center. Got about 25, 28 people in my program, and the response has been really great. You and I were talking before we started, and I like to really focus not so much on the what, but on the why. It really drill down to how you've been successful, how you've been so incredibly successful. You're a young guy. You've had just tremendous success in what I would call a relatively short period of time. You know, about 8 years. You've gone from zero to hero very, very quickly. So for those of us who don't know you, could you tell us a little bit about your background, what brought you into real estate, and where you are today?
Sure, yeah. So before real estate, I worked at McDonald's. I was a regional person for them, and certainly that's helped me a lot in what I do today. And I actually started there. That was my first job, and I was just going to make enough money to buy a car, and I was going to be out, like everybody else. And then I just climbed the corporate ladder, so to speak, and really always had an entrepreneurial heart, and kind of came to this crossroads of like, am I going to go build the McDonald's corporate empire, or am I going to go, build an entrepreneurial one on my own? And then just went into real estate because I really saw that as a great wealth building investment avenue. I actually didn't expect to get too much into sales, and then got wooed into that more than the investing side pretty quickly.
So what was the main catalyst for you choosing real estate to go on that entrepreneurial journey? In other words, why not go open up a bunch of franchises or what have you? What attracted you to real estate?
Well, I always loved real estate from watching it as an investment standpoint, like just understanding that most Americans built wealth through real estate. That was always a big thing to me. Then I had some real estate agents that were friends of mine, and I found myself consulting them in their business. And quite honestly, they drove me crazy. Like, they didn't think about it like a business, didn't treat it like a business. There was all these pieces inside, and they had this unlimited potential income and growth opportunities, and just really just stayed in a hamster wheel of small think. I know I hate to say it that way. It sounds judgmental, but just didn't think about it as a big business. And I actually, so then I went to Keller Williams first. I had a friend that was in Keller Williams. I looked at the website, and it said God, Family, then Business, and I'm like, well, that's my principle, so then that must be right. I just went there and then found out about everything later. I actually designed what I thought was this genius team model. That I kind of took these McDonald's concepts, this idea of separate and specialize, and then do scaled up business with houses instead of burgers, and much higher sales price. And then I read MREA and realized that, somebody else had already figured it out, and their plan was a little bit better than mine anyway.
Right.
So I just went into that.
So what, you and I were talking a little bit before we started, and I really like to focus on, the why, because people like yourself are extraordinary. I mean, you're so far beyond mediocre, and yet so many people settle for mediocrity. And I'm just curious, what drives you? What is your big why? What's your purpose? And have you always known what that is, or has that evolved over time?
Wow, that's a big question. Yeah, yes, I think it's evolved over time, first of all, or I've gotten closer to more clarity on it. And in the way, so you asked what's the big why? I kind of say, like, well, I have goals, I have definitions of success, I even have purpose, and I think underneath that underlying fire, that underlying motivation is what I would label as the big purpose. For
Right.
me, and I've got clarity on all of those now at various points. And for me, the big why, my underlying fire for me is honoring my Creator, to be the full version of myself, right? Knowing that, He put me in this country. He put me in this country at this age of time. He put all these people around me through McDonald's, through Keller Williams, just really incredibly wise people. Gary Keller, Mark Willis, John Davis, all these people have invested time into me, Mo Anderson, and then even in McDonald's, like CEO of McDonald's came to visit me before, which is just weird, that rare. So this idea that he put me with all this wisdom, accessed all this wisdom around me at this time and age, and poured this stuff into me. So I want to honor him by returning that tenfold, by being a good steward of that. The paradox, though, is by my belief anyway, is that he doesn't need that. I'm under grace, and he doesn't require that. Yet it's my full desire to honor him by being the fullest version of myself possible. So that's really what I chase. Like every day, I run towards that.
And is that's something that's conscious within you every day?
Yeah, every day, and every morning I connect with him first, and yet it's another reminder. It's like I feel a burden of the wisdom or the things I learn. If I hold on to those and I'm not pouring them back out there or implementing them, then I'm not being a good steward. It's the parable of the talents if you read the Bible.
Yes,
that's really, it haunts me. Even though I know I'm under grace, it still haunts me. It's weird.
What do you mean it haunts you?
Well, that's what drives me. Is like I almost feel a sense of like I'm not fully. The moment I hold back from being a good steward of what he's provided or put in my life is dishonoring to him. So that's what haunts me. I'm always asking myself, like, am I fully doing it? And so knowing that I'm under grace, it's still, man, that's the fire for me.
That's great. And thank you for sharing that with us. I appreciate that. What can you put into perspective what kind of numbers you do and how you've grown and where you started in your real estate career, where you are today? And I saw an interview with you that I watched the other day. I'd also like you to talk about where you want to be in the next couple of years, because I think that is an amazing goal.
Yeah. So numbers, as regional director, we've broken every record in Maryland, D.C. that the region's ever had in the 4 years I've been there. And believe me, that's not really about me. It's about the incredible people that are there, just incredible leaders. We've more than doubled the size of the region in 3.5 years, which is very, very rare for big companies like that. And just like I said, blown every record out of the water. We have the #1 agent in the world here that we brought over from our competitors. So just a lot of great success here. Really proud of the people there. In the world of owning a franchise, being an OP, we just finished our first full year last year. We're in month 20 right now at about 250 agents. We will have 300 agents before our 24th month in 2 years. Wow. Hit the Triple Crown, #1 in agent count, #1 in volume, #1 in units. That's all because Vlad Katz, the team leader, a lot of people know him, was #2 in the whole company last year in his first year. So working on Market Center #2 now, getting ready to close on that in the next couple of weeks. And then as a mega agent, that's where I started solo agent in Massachusetts, built a team up to 7th level in about 5 years, moved to Maryland to be the regional director. Since then, myself and a couple of partners, just incredible people, Reed Moore, Jeff Payne, and Devin Doherty formed the 5 Doors expansion team. Right. And I've rolled my business into that. And since then, now last year, I think right now we're on pace for trailing 12 months. It was like about 900 units, 225 million in volume, about 6 million in GCI. So that's going pretty well. It sounds really cool. It's a big mess, but it's a lot of fun. And we're excited about that challenge. And we think we've really started to figure out expansion at a much higher level, and we've got some real incredible systems of regionalizing and doing expansion in a big way that are helping a lot of people. And
you're going out and teaching that expansion system now, correct?
Yeah, I support Kristen Cole in teaching, and however she wants to use me inside of that. But yeah, there's a lot of pioneering in expansion, right? And there is a lot of failure in expansion right now. Which is good. I mean, it's part of the package, and we're pretty sure that we got a couple of years out on it now. We're in our 3rd year, and we certainly have failed for it a lot. And we're starting to get it really dialed in, and it's really taking off now. It's getting fun. And what's the goal? Where do you want to be in the next 5 years, if that's the old? Sure. Yeah. Like if I looked at a 5-year snapshot, I would say that 5 Doors in about 5 years should be crossing about 1.3 billion in volume. Like we're going to hit $1 billion in volume by 2020. We'll probably be in about 12 regions with 12 regional partners out there that are really making big dollars and doing really well. The region should be crossing about 6,000 agents in 5 years. Market centers, I should be probably at ownership in about 12 market centers, not OP, just in ownership, because part of me going to get that many market centers is to provide OP opportunities for about 10 other people. So I might be OP of 2 of those, if that. We'll probably have about 3,000 agents in that family. And then I have just started an investment company, Campbell Capital, with Brenton Hess. And we should own in 5 years probably about 5 commercial properties and have about $5 million invested in small and medium businesses.
Amazing.
It's probably about where I'd be in 5 years. Should be.
I'm sure you will be there. Congratulations on your success. So if I'm a brand new real estate agent, I just came into the business today and I'm listening to you talk, what would you tell me to do if I wanted to be a tenth of Seth Campbell? If I just wanted to get into the business and I wanted to do 30, 40 deals this year, what advice do you give to new agents?
I think when you're a new agent, like the biggest thing is you've got to get in reality. Like you've got to understand that you have 2 jobs. You've got lead generation, hunting for business, and then you've got all the stuff that you see on TV, which is like showing houses and listing houses and making all the money, right? And you got to ask yourself the question, am I going to commit most of my time on the first job so that I get to keep the second job? And that's the question right there. And then be real about that. And then when you decide to commit to the first job, because that's what the game we're really in, lead generation, then you've got to get real strategic about how you're going to do that.
Right. A lot of agents that I talk to, and I'm sure you do too, and they don't have to be new agents, they can be agents that have been in the business for a few years, have a real fear, whether it be of making calls or knocking on doors or doing some of the lead generation things that you're talking about, and it stops them from ever getting any further in their career. So 2 questions. Have you ever been afraid? Have you been afraid to make a call or knock on a door? Can you remember a time in your career where you were afraid? And then number 2, what strategies would you suggest for people if they are fearful of those types of things? Maybe something you've used in your past.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the answer is yes. I have had fear. I started on cold calls, FSBOs, and expireds with my career, so I had to face that fear every single day. And yeah, I did have fear along that, and I think everybody else probably does, just to a lesser degree. Some people are wired to have less fear than others. Right. I'm wired to have a little bit less fear than most people, so I think that probably helps. Yeah, it's human nature to have some of it. I've just never let them get in the way of achieving what I want. I think the way to overcome fear, it's usually a fear of rejection. One of the key strategies to overcome fear of rejection is have your skill so high that you always know what to say. So I would say script practice is one of the best things anybody could do. Even if you're wired to hate rejection, knowing your scripts will always give you comfort in knowing what to say, no matter, you won't get thrown off guard. So that fear starts to dissipate inside of that. For the other thing, like kind of big picture that always helps me no matter what, is I put fear in perspective, right? Because a lot of times it's a failure thing. People label, I don't want to do this because I'm afraid like I'll fail, right? For me, rejection, failure, you got to put it in perspective, like on a timeline almost, right? What's the snapshot? Is it failure on this call? Like, so if the timeline is this conversation, could I fail? Yes. Could it be miserable? Yes. If I widen the timeline to this calling session, could I end up walking out with 2 appointments? Yeah. So I actually could label that as success in spite of all that failure. If I labeled it as this week, could it be more successful? Yeah. In spite of all that failure. If I labeled this month, could I have a better month? Could I have a better year? Could I have a better life? Right. So I think like in any snapshot, we can say, wow, that was terrible. That's failure. I should be really scared of that. Right. But if we look at the whole timeline, that's like, dude, that's just part of the ingredients, right? So I always put it in perspective.
That's great.
And if I'm really tied and anchored to my goals, right, then I'm willing to go over there and say, well, all right, this could be a terrible day, but it could be a great week.
And how much of that purpose that we talked about earlier, that big why, plays into you overcoming that fear? Was there? Did
everything?
Yeah.
It's everything. And strategically, like something people could implement right away is getting in touch with that every morning. So when I look at my goals every morning and I read through them, and after my Bible time and I get connected with my purpose, man, man, that bad phone call or it's not that big of a deal, right? Because I'm reminded of why I'm doing all this.
Right. That's great. Thank you. Another question. This is out of a Gary Vaynerchuk book that I just finished reading. So I have to give him credit. So how much of your success is confidence? How much of your success is skill? And how much is luck? So how much is confidence? How much is skill? And how much is luck?
I don't put luck on my business plan. I've heard some wealthy people say like luck is part of the equation. I haven't figured that out. It hasn't been for me. It's always been just a daily activity, micro steps towards big goals, right? A daily activity focused on micro steps towards a big goal. And I think confidence and skills are ingredients in success. I think the other two are ingredients. And yet I'd say they're not even the main two ingredients. The research is super clear that persistence is the single largest determiner of success.
Right.
Most people view success as a strung together series of wins. I've never seen that in any successful person I've even studied. Success simply is a strung together series of failures and losses that my persistence in my bank account has outlasted.
Right.
And the interesting thing is if my bank account doesn't outlast it, what can I do? Right. I could actually just still rebuild, right?
Right.
So then it actually becomes my persistence, right?
Right.
So I think confidence and skill are very important. Persistence will beat everything.
Yeah.
Eventually, if you experiment with the light bulb enough times, you'll get it.
Right.
Eventually.
I'm so glad you mentioned failure. Everyone that I have talked to over the last couple of weeks has mentioned. Aaron Kaufman mentioned, all the failures that he had in failing forward. Brock Worthen, who's, I don't know if you know Brock, he's a team leader in Pasadena. Same thing. I mean, he credits failing to his success. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. What do you think is the biggest obstacle to someone becoming a successful real estate agent?
Biggest obstacle to somebody becoming a successful real estate agent I've observed is consistency. It's real interesting, right? We know that the person who makes 10 contacts every single day will blow out of the water the person that makes like 100 contacts a day for this week and then disappears for 6 months, right?
Right.
The turtle really will win. The tortoise really will win the race in this business. And the other thing I would even link it to what we just talked about in failure is my view is consistency actually breeds more failure, more rapid failure. So in other words, every success requires a certain amount of failure, right?
Yep.
I'm very weird about this stuff.
No,
Sit up and think about this stuff. So let's say selling 100 houses a year or 50 houses a year requires 350 failures, right? If I'm consistent daily in my activity and you're inconsistent in your activity, then I'm going to get my 350 failures faster and I'll get to success sooner.
Right.
It's why 10,000 hours is mastery. So the faster you can compress that timeline, the sooner you'll succeed. And consistency is what will make that happen.
Right. And Dave Norberg, I'm sure you know Dave down in San Diego. He's a perfect example, of a guy who every single day is just grinding it out.
Chris Heller.
Chris Heller, yeah, exactly.
Lead generate for 20 years.
Right.
And I'm sure there's 50 people around him that lead generated more than him in a day for about a week.
Right.
And he just kept going, builds an empire off of that.
Right. No, that's excellent. How important in our industry is having a coach and having or a mentor?
Wow.
And are they different?
Yes. Oh yeah. That's a really good question actually, because I think people confuse that. Coaches are vital. Coaches are for implementation. I think a lot of times people confuse coaching with training. You go to class for training, you go to books for training, you go to your coach for implementation, you go to your coach for course correction, you get your plan, you go to class to learn how to do it through a model and a system, then you come back to your coach, say this is where I want to go, this is the model I want to use, now you help me implement that, right? They're their personal trainer, right? So then you course correct and fail. Then you go back to class, then you come back to your coach, course correct, fail. They see your blind spot, slap you in the face, you're missing this, course correct, fail, back to class, back to coach, So coaches become your implementation game. yeah, like I go crazy when I hear people say, "Oh, I got to choose a coach who's better than me at what I'm doing." Like, no, like
Right.
the greatest sports athletes didn't have a coach that was better than them.
Right.
Coaches are for they're breakthrough artists.
Right.
They help you break through implementing models that don't come natural to you, that you don't want to do, that you have blind spots in, and they just keep you going through that. What I love about coaching, particularly MAPS coaching, is like the fact that it's every week means like you don't fall off the scale too
Right.
long, right?
Right.
You and I were in Weight Watchers, and we didn't have to weigh each other
Right.
ourselves for 2 months.
Right.
Versus somebody that gets to weigh themselves every week, like they're going to win, right?
Right. Right. No, excellent. Just question just that popped in my head. What books have you read recently, or do you have a favorite book that has helped you along your path?
Man, I obsessively read.
Me
Like,
too. Me too.
I set a goal to read at least 2 books every single month, and sometimes I beat that, sometimes I'm a little short. So I'm reading books all the time. One of my favorite books I'm reading, actually, the one I'm reading right now is called Wired for Success, Program for Failure, which is a real interesting book. I really love that. Some of the great business books that have shaped me is Good to Great. I think is one of the best business books of our time. It's a little textbook-ish, got to get through the research, but I think that's an incredible business book. I think the one thing, I don't just say that because, I love Gary. Truly, that book is, when we talk about like in coaching, the implementation ingredient, like that book at its core gives you the strategies on how to implement anything in your life successfully. Like, I think that becomes foundational to whatever you want to do.
And you're an incredible busy guy. Do you make time for continuing learning? I talked to Antoinette Perez last week, and we talked a lot about that. Do you actually schedule into your schedule? How much time do you spend a week on self-improvement?
On book?
Well, just self-improvement overall.
Yeah, self-improvement. Well, even on reading, I got a great idea from Donna Kokoska. She said she reads 5 pages a day, so I just started doing that.
Right.
And I do it during breakfast. So I actually do work very hard on living the Millionaire Real Estate Energy Plan that's at the very end of MREA. So I hit spiritual energy, I hit physical energy. Now I do stuff with my wife and kids in the morning, at least some kind of play or conversation with them before leaving. So I hit the social energy. That was a new one for me because I used to wait till the end of the day and give them not my best.
Right.
And then now I do my mental energy. So I'll read during breakfast. I'll read my 5 pages there, and I've just linked it to that breakfast habit, and that's really been incredible. It actually affects the way I think during the day. Like stuff starts to happen, and I was like, oh, I just read that, and then I say something, people think I sound smart. So that's really been helpful for me. So I weave that in. And then as far as regular education, self-improvement, it's more time blocked towards events. I time block, pick my classes out all ahead of time and go to all those.
Great. No, I love that you're conscious and that you're conscious of what you read in the morning. I mean, it shows that you have presence, which is awesome, because you think somebody like yourself is just going all day long. And I think that's one of the challenges as an agent, right? I mean, we're just going, and so many people forget to be present in what they're doing. And when you link it back to what you did in the morning and what you read, I find that really fascinating. I love that.
Yeah, well, like I'm not. People a lot of times I get a message like, "I know you're real busy. I know you're real busy."
Yeah.
I'm actually not real busy. I'm real focused. And I get that from Gary. And I'm not that great at it. Working very hard at it yet. I just do my best to work and live in priority. I've predetermined what matters most, do that first. And the funny part is there's actually a lot more time in the day than we think. I have more time with my kids and family than I ever have in my life.
That's great. That's very important. My kids are older now, and the spending time when they're young is critical. So kudos to you. Two last questions, my favorite questions that I love to ask. One is, if you could go back and place a call to your 20-year-old self, and you could give that 20-year-old self any piece of advice based on what you've learned to this point in your life, what would you say to your 20-year-old self? What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Find a way to buy 5 properties every year. That would be it. I would start my wealth building journey back then and get out of the mindset that I needed a whole bunch of cash in the bank to do it. Because now, like, fast forward to today, I realize, like, you actually don't don't let money be a hindrance to investing. So I would have started investing back then.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then one last question. So if you had to give me one word to describe the reason for your success, what word would that be? Just one word.
Um, it would be God. It would be faith. Yeah. I mean, that's it.
Let's just finish up on that. How has that gotten you through where you are?
Well, I think that, like I said, the biggest determiner of success is persistence. My persistence comes from Him, knowing that He's in control. He doesn't give me more than I can handle with Him. Through Him, all things are possible. So, persistence is the key. How persistence stays alive for me is through Him.
That's great.
Otherwise, I would run out of gas a long time ago.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I greatly appreciate your time. We're coming up on a weekend. I know you want to spend some time with the family and your kids. One of the things I love about this company is the fact that people like yourself are willing to give 20, 25 minutes of your time freely. I appreciate you very much, and I wish you the best of luck. And if you ever get out to West Coast, come look us up in La Quinta, because we'd love to have you come by.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm happy to help. I appreciate you and appreciate all you're doing. And man, your folks over there are lucky to have a leader like you in their life. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. I appreciate your time.
You too.
All right,
Take care.
talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.